Hey there, YouTube. It's Petey Two Finger, and today I wanted to talk about 2016, February 10th, 2016. My life changed significantly. I suffered an acute anxiety event. It lasted about a quarter of a year, and what I went through is really hard to describe and hard for me to talk to, but I want to make this video, and in the reasoning behind me going through this process is not so much so my regular viewers can watch it and feel sorry for me or comment or something like that to make me feel better about it. It's because when I was going through this, I was looking for information or people who had went through something similar, and I found two things. One guy was a heroin addict who the same thing happened to him. Another person was later on I found a woman who had went through it, who she was taking a drug called metformin, which is a diabetes type 2 medication, and she had the same thing, although it wasn't as bad for her. She said that she had to have her husband drive her around the block at 3 o'clock in the morning. For her, it was getting really bad overnight. So my story begins when I injured my back. I have 2 herniated discs and I have a degenerative arthritis disease in my spine. If I had seen a bunch of doctors, it's inoperable. They're basically just treating it with pain meds. And I ended up going to this pain clinic, which was in the city. I really did not want to go there. The city is, if you're here in Chicago, you sit in endless miles and miles and miles of dead stop traffic jams, or you can get off the highway and go through the hood. Either way, I mean, you can shave off a little time by cutting through the hood, but it's just frustrating, and it's kind of dangerous too. You just see stuff that you'd rather not see, and you feel intimidated at the stoplights, roll them up. So this director of the pain clinic that I was at suggested that I needed to go on testosterone replacement therapy. I never had mentioned to him that I had any issues which testosterone replacement therapy would be a solution. Never said anything like that. He just came to me with it and kind of demanded that I do it. And I did. It was a stuff called androgell. You rub it on your arms. It's a little packet. So I was on the androgell for a while. And it was 3 months. On February 10th of 2016, I went to sleep, and the moment that I disconnected from consciousness and went to sleep, I had the sensation that I was falling rapidly down a tunnel, and really rushing feeling. And I jumped up out of bed. I came out here and sat down and stayed up that whole night. And what ended up happening was I started feeling like I had taken LSD. I was tripping. My neck felt like my neck was 9 miles long, and I got this buzzing, like a high feeling, but it was horrible feeling. It was like a bad trip. So this acute anxiety event continued for a quarter of a year. And what I suffered was I could not sleep. 5 days was the longest that I was up without any sleep. 5 days. I could not eat. I had cramping diarrhea, horrible gut pain. I was depressed. I had fear of impending doom. I had heart rate stuff where I couldn't, if I laid down, if I went reclined, it was like I couldn't get enough. I always felt like I couldn't get enough air to breathe. But if I laid down, it was like I was choking. And the fear of impending doom is just like this. You just feel like you're going to die soon. Now, as all this is going on, I'm thinking, are they microwaving me? Is the CIA testing a weapon? And I'm going from putting this stuff on again, and then I feel a little better, and then it comes back even worse. So I played around with it on and off before deciding just to completely cut it off. And the doctors had no explanation. They all were like, the endocrinologist, we made an appointment, and it was like a month and a half later I got to see her. She was horrible. Yelled at me. I got upset. I raised my voice, I guess. I mean, I raised my voice a little bit like I'm doing in this video, and she flipped out about it and threatened to call security and kick me out of her office and put some red mark that I'm crazy on my medical records. Because everyone involved, they would look at the side effect lists of this medication, and these side effects aren't on there. So of course it can't be real. It's got to be something else. I'm going crazy. Were your parents crazy? Are you bipolar? And I basically couldn't get any help. I mean, my regular doctor is a woman. I went over there. I was unable to see her. I saw another woman. She prescribed me benzodiazepine, and that really worked. It took like half of that edge off of what was going on with me. And the side effects, like I'm telling you, I would go for a while. It gets really bad overnight. And I couldn't, if I put my glasses on, I could see the rims, and that would trigger a claustrophobic attack. I was just pacing around, shaking and crying for a quarter of a year. It was the most horrible thing. I can't tell you. In that period of time, it was right after David Bowie died. This happened. I discovered the music of Todd Rundgren, and I listened to that a lot. That music kind of helped me to get through that time. But now I can't listen to Todd Rundgren because it brings back that thing. But I was unable to eat, and I remember being up for that 5 days. When I finally did sleep, like the first time it happened, I had been up for 2 days. My wife was making something to eat, and I passed out here where I'm sitting here for 10 minutes. And when I woke up, there was a light and a tiny light, and I did not know who I was. I did not know where I was. It was this soulless, like I was gone. And all that there was bone-shattering fear as this light is getting closer and closer and closer. And then it's, here I am, it's me, I'm sitting here, and then waves upon waves of terror and confusion, where I'm just like literally Pink Floyd The Wall. Like I cannot describe to you what I went through. And then the time where I slept for 5 days, when I woke up, I slept overnight that day. I got like a good 6 hours of sleep. When I woke up, the phone rang, and it woke me up, and I got up, and I had a intense vertigo. Everything started spinning like I've never experienced anything like this, and that vertigo was so horrific. Now, my mom suffered undiagnosable vertigo. They couldn't figure out what it was, and she had that, put her in a home, and we lost her last July. But I can only imagine if that's what she was suffering, how horrible the last 10, 15 years of her life must have been. So I called the local mental health. They have like it's like a local healthcare thing, and they had me seeing a doctor and a psychologist, and I would go in and talk to the psychologist once a week, and for therapy. And I'm telling her like everything was fine in my life until I put this stuff on, and then now this horrible event happened to me, and the doctor put me on a sleep medicine called Seroquel, which is really a great sleep aid. But they also put me on Paxil. Now, Paxil is for bipolar people, and I'm not like I was on that Paxil for 3 or 4 years. I think 3 years I was on it for, and I ballooned. I gained 75 pounds. I go to the doctor, they tell me you're type 2 diabetes, because you're so fat. And they gave me this metformin, which triggered those panic attacks again. When I was on metformin, I had panic attacks, and then I had a gout flare up, and I asked the doctor for indomethacin. I used to have chronic gout for 15 years. I had it in both of my knees. My knees would get as big as a cantaloupe. I suffered a real lot of pain in my life from that gout. It's just been the history of my life. I've had a lot of like really painful stuff that I've had to deal with and go through. Being unbelievably sensitive to poison ivy and living near the Des Plaines River, I constantly was broken out in poison ivy. Sometimes like a third of my body would be covered with these blisters. Poison ivy is horrible, and if you get that all throughout the season every year, it can really ruin your life. So with the gout, I really liked this indomethacin. I could take it before I would go to sleep. I'd be watching a movie and I would get so tired I would have to go sleep, and I would get a good night's sleep even if I had the horrible gout pain in my knees. So when I had a gout incident, this is like a year after I was free from the acute anxiety. I went on this indomethacin, and I took one and I had that panic attack. It came back. And that medicine, I used to love the way it made me feel. It did give you like a sedative sleep thing. So since then, I know if I'm prescribed something, I need to put that in the search engine and then put the words of these side effects and see if any of them come up, and be aware before I take it, take a small amount, and then if I am all of a sudden flipping out in this acute anxiety event, I'll know, well, that's just this medicine. If it's bad enough, go to the emergency room and demand that they treat you, which would mean give you something to bring you down. Because if you're there in their care, they should take care of you. They should give you something. So ultimately, everyone was playing hot potato with me. Like, they wouldn't answer my calls. I was calling them at the pain clinic. They just didn't want to have anything to do with me. So we got our records. I got my records and got out of there, and I left right away. See ya. And I go to a pain clinic that's much closer to home now. So this type of thing, like if you read about, there's a toxic jellyfish that lives in Australia, on the north side of Australia by the Great Barrier Reef, and these things come out in November to May. You cannot swim in that area, because if this thing stings you, you'll be praying for God to take you. You'll be begging the doctor to take you. And one of the things that you go through, besides all the skin burning and horrible pain, vomiting, diarrhea, pouring sweat, is fear of impending doom. And I had that. That may have been the worst part of it. Next to the vertigo, the fear of impending doom is, I cannot describe it to you, but it's just like you're in fight or flight. Like my system was just going, just grinding at itself. And I'm guessing really what happened was this stuff I'm rubbing on my arms shut down. My body just stopped producing all of those hormones and brain chemicals like dopamine, all of that stuff. It just shut down. They call it a hormonal crash. And your body just stops producing all that stuff. So I don't understand it. I'm not a doctor. I just know that it happened when I was playing around with that stuff, that medicine. And as I was experiencing it, I know if I put it on, I would get some relief, but then it would make the whole thing come back even worse. And that's maybe why it lasted so long, because I played around with it. I mean, when you're in that position, you'll do anything. You know, it's very much like a psychedelic experience. It's like a bad acid trip with a PCP overdose and a crack cocaine come down. That's like if you could roll all three of those into one ball. If you've ever done way too much PCP and you're completely in the depths of hell and you know you're never coming back and Satan has your mind, that's what this was like, but worse. It really was. I cannot describe to you how horrifically bad what I went through for that quarter of a year. I cannot describe it to you. And I'm not exaggerating. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. It was the absolute living red nightmare. So I thank God that I regained my health and that I'm reasonably happy here living with the health issues that I face now. I'm going for a procedure which hopefully will alleviate what I've been living with, which is this abdominal pain. So anyway, you guys, I really do appreciate you guys. And if you're not a regular and you're here watching this, you're in the middle of that. I know what you're going through. You need to go to the ER. Go to the ER. You need to demand treatment. And more than likely, I should have sought some legal. I should have had some recourse. I should have. I just, that whole thing is like I was raised the other way, that you never do that. So I didn't. I just grit my teeth and bear it. And when you go through something that's that unbelievably powerful, it changes you. It really does. And I would like to think that I ended up a stronger person, but it was such a horrific experience. It's like I don't even like talking about it. I really don't. I really, really don't like thinking about that. I was watching something about these jellyfish, and the fear of impending doom thing came up, and that triggered me to go through this and want to talk about with you guys. So I thank you for joining me. Never take your health for granted, and if somebody's suffering or sick, don't look at them like they're faking. That's the worst possible thing you could do. If they're saying they're sick, something's wrong with them. Maybe it might be that they're a hypochondriac, but they're saying they're sick is a reflection of something's out of whack. So be kind, try to stay cool, hug your pets, and peace.